Now, are you ready to do your service for the Emperor? Because I sure am. Now, I absolutely love this game. Warhammer 40K Darktide has been just my favorite game now for the last year, which is surprising as I'm not a massive multiplayer, person. And a lot of the times I just enjoy playing this solo, which might sound a little bit sad, but that's because this game is so good, and it actually has converted me into a Warhammer 40k fan. I've actually now, done a lot of research into the lore, and I always thought the people who liked Warhammer 40k were a little bit too insane, a little bit too much invested, you could say.
Geekiest thing would have to be my Warhammer stuff.
We're talking Games Workshop, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah. It's that took me a while to kind of confess to openly and publicly.
Dare I say it? I know exactly what you mean. A collection of white undercoat spray paint that just lurks in the back of the cupboard.
Yeah, I was like, what's this? For graffiti?
I understand now why so many people love this franchise, and that just shows you how good this game is. If it actually converted me into a Warhammer 40k fan, I love the deep religious themes in this universe, and it taps into some interesting philosophy that I want to highlight as well, which is tapping into the metaphysical, human will actually having an effect on the universe. Basically, your actions have consequences in the Warhammer 40k universe, good or bad. It basically reverberates through the universe and taps into the metaphysical, and can create, all kinds of chaos in the warp, which is the different dimension. And to some degree, I do believe this is how our reality works, as I do believe in a dualist state of existence with my own personal philosophy. But I'll discuss that more towards the end of the video, because not everyone is going to be interested in that. I just want to talk about Warhammer 40k Darktide and why this game is amazing, why you need to play Warhammer 40k Darktide in 2024. Today I'm going to be giving you a 40k Darktide 2024 review, looking at all of the updates, what has changed, because I just can't get enough of this game.
God's lessons are so beautiful.
God's lessons are beautiful? I'm sorry, who put this fight together? This is a... Well, I do. If y'all got an actual crazy person for me to fight, well, that's not fair to me or him.
Now I understand why some people might look at this game and not be interested in it because they think it's just a simple horde shooter, but I can promise you that is not what this game is about, okay? There is so much artistry in this game, so much detail as well for a multiplayer experience, like the ragdolls when you shoot the enemy, the amount of chaos happening on screen at any given point, the addictive fun gameplay, and now with the good and detailed upgrade system for each of the different classes that you can play as, make this such a special game to me, and I'm glad that Fat Shark haven't given up on this game. I started playing it a year ago, so luckily most of the bugs were already ironed out for me. Yes, it had a bad reputation on launch, which is obviously not surprising because that's pretty much all live service games at this point, and there is still a strong player base for this game, and I hope that with the interest of Space Marines 2, that people will come back to Darktide, because as much as I think Space Marines 2 is good, I do think Darktide is a better game, and I will be doing a Space Marines 2 versus Darktide 40k, a little bit of a comparison in this video, but it just depends what you like. If you like more hack and slash third person kind of Souls-esque combat, or you want a great FPS with first person combat in it that's actually very detailed and it reminds me of great quality games like Chivalry. I mean, it's just so good. Having a great melee combat system like Chivalry and then blend it with great shooting that feels so weighty and just has so much impact that you just don't get in most single player games, let alone multiplayer games. And then this beautiful artistry, that they took inspiration from, of course, the Warhammer 40k Darktide universe. It's just so good. It's so addictive. And if you know, if you're hooked like me on Warhammer 40k, Darktide, then you will understand why I'm so passionate about this game. I don't think many people will care because a lot of people have given up on it, but I just want to give you a 40K Darktide 2024 review because a lot has changed and a lot is going to change later down the line. I thought for this video it would be fitting to kind of film it in the dark, as this game is very, very gritty and I love it for that. But I do hope you enjoy this Darktide 2024 review because honestly, it has so much to offer. And yeah, I just hope you try it out for yourself. It's not sponsored, by the way, I just love it that much.
It's all mind war.
I wanted people to be able to see it.
I just don't think people are ready for it.
Well, sure.
The third dimension is just this empty wasteland. Above it and below it is all this incredibly complex stuff, but our brains tune all of it out because we can't handle it.
It's almost like there's too many things happening.
People go nuts.
For people who are not thinking the way you're thinking, it can be exhausting.
And the truth is, no energy is ever destroyed. It all continues on. So kind of like almost autistic, is I'm just being constantly.
Right. Why?
Because lower entities will come in and violate your free will.
They know all your bullshit. They see right through you.
They will not manipulate your free will unless you ask them in.
I have.
Dude, do not say that. I'm going to get killed.
Wow, a YouTuber that isn't actually doing something for money in 2024? Wow, you must be insane. You actually make videos you care about? And you try and do old school YouTube? Yes, that's right. I must be absolutely crazy. I'm not trying to monopolize everything. So, if you want to support an independent creator that's trying to do OG YouTube, I will simply ask you to subscribe before I get into my review, and consider supporting the show so I can actually do this full time by dropping a small donation. That would mean so much to me. And just sound off in the comments down below. I love having a discussion with you guys, especially for people out there who like this game like me. Is Warhammer 40K Darktide worth it in 2024? Should you be playing this game? Yes, you should. So around now, it's got around like 5,000, I think it's daily players, something like that. So it's not like the biggest, it's not the top 100 Steam games at the moment, which is not surprising. But the fact that so many... But the fact that so many people are still enjoying this game, almost had a little mini stroke there. The Emperor is trying to silence me for spreading misinformation. No, but it is still, you know, got a good, healthy player base, and that just shows you that this game is good, because a lot of people will just not touch it because it's Warhammer, and, you know, I have no interest in Warhammer before I played this, but it's so good that it made me interested in the franchise. That shows you how good this game is. So just as a game, even if you don't have any interest in Warhammer, trust me, this game is great. So first of all, let's just talk about what you actually do. So you can choose between 4 different classes, okay? Basically, you can be the tactical veteran, which deals with ranged gameplay and shooting, and you have a tactical focus to basically pinpoint targets and take them down quickly. You can be goddamn Shrek in this if you want to, a big old overgrown human that deals a lot of damage and can basically clear out hordes easily, basically takes a lot of aggro and stuff like that. Then you have the Zealot, or the super religious one, that basically is focused on melee combat, and they are just spreading the word of the good Lord by decapitating everyone in their path. And then of course you have the Psyker, I think it's called, which is basically the mage. And if you know anything about the Warhammer games, you know, if you played Vermintide 2, you will know how good the hack and slash combat is in this, but honestly it's so much better than before. So first of all, melee combat is just a goddamn blast. It gets your blood pumping, it never gets stale, even if I'm replaying the same missions. So you have basic dodges, but it's also frantic and fast-paced, but everything, you know, actually connects. It just feels so great. You even have a parry, you have a pushback, you have directional attacks, charged attacks, and depending on the weapon and your class, you have special moves as well, which is so satisfying to pull off. It just feels goddamn amazing. Then the ranged combat itself just feels meaty and weighty, and you're like tearing into flesh, and it just feels so goddamn good. Especially when you have the automatic weapon and you just see this horde coming at you and you just mow them down. The details in this game are just so goddamn good. It's been so long since I've seen a good AAA game or AA game that has attention to detail like this. You know, when you shoot an enemy, you actually see the wound in the enemy, the way they crumple in dynamic ways, the gibbles and all this kind of stuff. It's just great stuff, and most games fail at this. If this was a single player game, if it had a campaign to it, oh my god, we would be cooking with some high quality ingredients, my friends. Now the classes are a little bit frowned upon, and that's why it got mixed reviews at the beginning, which is a crying shame because that's just what most modern day gaming is nowadays. It releases unfinished, and the same thing happened with Darktide, so I'm not going to excuse it for that. But now, when the classes before were bare bones, now they have some juicy meat on them. You know, meat is back on the menu. So now when you actually play as your given class, I'm now playing 2 classes at the time of recording this video, but now you can actually go through a skill progression path. But I like that it's not a simple perk tree like in most, you know, modern day games or shooters or RPG light games. This actually, you really have to think about, you know, how you're progressing your character, because there's different branching paths and you really can't have, you know, all of it. You have to finely tune your character and pick and choose, and they all have slightly different buffs and debuffs, but then you get some cool abilities at each, you know, kind of main section of the skill tree. So it's not just like a simple skill tree where actually it doesn't matter and you can just be an overpowered god by choosing everything. You really have to niche down on your build, and it just makes this game actually fun now, because before it just felt like you were progressing for no reason. Also, the new update that is just come out, basically your guns have progression to them as well, and before it was already great because you could basically, you know, add certain stats to them, or you could bless them and they would get, you know, a higher rarity, all of that kind of stuff. That was already great, but now it's got even deeper customization and personality to them. So your favorite gun, you can see where the potential of that gun is going, or that sword or the shovel, and then you can fine tune it and add special abilities to it. So it's got a lot of customization. Now also across the classes, you can take things like, you can take on these special tasks and this will give you cosmetics, so you don't have to, you know, buy cosmetics if you don't want to. You can unlock it that way, which is satisfying to see. All of the maps, yes, they look similar, but they are all very well designed and they all have branching paths going, you know, which way, and they all have great branching paths, so it never feels boring. Each map will have random additions onto it, so, you know, maybe you'll go into a map where basically it's infected with a bunch of gas, and that's, trust me, it's not that fun. I mean, it's fun, but it's very dangerous. And then of course you have the difficulty spikes as well, so you can go in with like level 1 all the way up to, I think it's like level 5 or something, and the hordes are more dangerous. You get more rare enemy types. It's got great enemy variation, armored enemies, big brutes that you have to take down, and mini bosses that can just randomly, you know, happen throughout the missions, which is great. And then different objective-based gameplay modes. So each map you load in, you have to complete an objective. It can be a simple raid, just clearing out all of the enemies. It could be an assassination where you have to take down, like I said, a mini boss. And now they've even added special missions as well, where you have to take out these proper like bosses as well, which is very cool and very satisfying. And like I said, you can play this multiple times. It's basically got all the content that Space Marine 2 needs right now, and it's only going to get added on further. So there's plenty of content here. Some of it does feel repetitive, yes, but that is also just the design of it. But there is enough replayability here because there are new maps and variations within the maps, mini bosses, lots of enemy variations, and now the upgrade just makes you keep coming back because the gameplay is that good. It never gets boring because the gameplay is just so satisfying. I just love the aesthetic of this. I just quickly have to gush about the art style in 40K Darktide, and that's why I think I love it so much, especially in 2024. Warhammer 40K Darktide in 2024 is still just so breathtaking. I finally upgraded to a better PC, and oh my god, does it look amazing. Even without ray tracing, but with ray tracing, it just looks absolutely gorgeous. But it's so rare for games to actually care about lighting, about physics in their games anymore. And the artistry of the 40K universe brought into this game is just so amazing. Like seeing these like just built upon cities where they're all just crunched and, you know, just piled on top of each other, and the idea of fighting, you know, this infested horde, this basically Nurgle, a god of, you know, disease and just depravity. It just fits the theme and the grittiness of this universe so well, and just the laser weapons, you know, reminds me of Fallout, and it's just all the best quality of sci-fi that you could possibly want all in one package, if you ask me. And it's just so rare to have a game with this much attention to detail and polish. especially in a multiplayer game. Also, when you're playing through any missions, you can find some collectibles to pick up, and some of the objectives are quite fun and varied, like sometimes you have to scan for certain, objectives and stuff like that. And like I said, what's most fun is fighting the mini bosses and, basically ranking up your character. There is a story here, but it is lacking, I would say, and it feels very cut and dry because you're not important. If this was a single player game with multiplayer onto it, like Space Marines 2, then this would be like just the best game ever, in my opinion. Space Marine 2 does do a better job in the narrative department and the kind of cosmetics and customization, I would say. But honestly, the gameplay here is just so good, and it's just so much better now in 2024. Darktide in 2024 have added new weapons. You get all the visceral weapons in the Warhammer universe, but they've added even more to it now. You can have flamethrowers, you can have bolt gun pistols. It's just so satisfying. And yes, I do love the gameplay modes, but I do hope that with the next update they add some new gameplay modes or some new enemy types. The variation now with the enemies is good. The tactical nature of this game is also very good. Like, you really do have to care about armor targets or snatchers or catchers, whatever they're called, flamethrowers, all of this kind of stuff, and all of them have unique sound designs. And it's just, one of those games where everything is designed deliberately, and that's just a rare experience, sadly, in modern day gaming, and that's why I appreciate it a lot. And finally, we come to the holy grail of why this game is amazing, and then I'll just touch upon the philosophy aspect to round off this yearly review of Warhammer 40K Darktide in 2024 and why it's worth your time. But holy shit, okay? As someone who makes music myself, and I'm currently working on a small indie game, people don't really understand how much music makes a game. Think of Skyrim and its soundtrack. Darktide wouldn't nearly be as amazing if it didn't have one of the best soundtracks in all of gaming. And, that's pretty high praise because there have been some absolute bangers, but honestly, Darktide is in the top 3. The music in this game is just next level. This is just amazing. The way he blends high synthetic sounds with a techno bass underline and then these gothic, kind of chimes, it's very much, inspired my music as well, and it's just so incredibly amazing, and each of the songs are just absolute bangers, and it just makes you so fired up no matter what you're doing. There's just a lot of content now in Warhammer 40K Darktide, and I just thought I would talk about it because I absolutely love this game. And if you've been thinking about getting this game or Space Marines 2, I would say get this game, because people who are asking, is Darktide 40K worth playing in 2024? Yes, it's only getting better. I wish the updates come out more because they are very slow updating this game, but we are getting new maps, we are getting new enemy types, and so far that's been enough. And the progression overhaul from now the classes to the weapons and the amount of detail now to the classes, like the mage build, for example. There's so many different ways you can build that character, the psyker and all that kind of stuff. It's just so fun. They just need to add more objectives, to be honest, and a story mode would be absolutely incredible, but maybe we'll get that in a sequel at some point. But yes, this game is absolutely amazing. The artistry behind it, the level design, the just detail from the enemies, the physics and all that kind of stuff, the satisfying combat, it's just very rare to get that in gaming these days. Now I'm just going to round off this 40K Darktide review with some philosophical underpinnings, as that's what I like to do on my channel. I'm not going to get heavily into the Warhammer universe because I'm still very much a novice and a noob to it, but I just love the idea of the warp, this, dimension on top of ours, the deep history of the human empire and how it's a super religious, future now that we live in. And it's, this galaxy spanning empire, but just this idea of the warp and, fighting off these, poor corrupted souls that have been corrupted by Nurgle, it just resonates heavily with this dualist idea of philosophy. And I take heavy inspiration from the Roman Empire and empires in general and the philosophies surrounding that time. So you can imagine how much I love this. It just speaks deeply to the human nature and, the species in the Warhammer universe and how they can get corrupted, or when you reach a certain level of consciousness, you can just simply get bored and then go into depravity, creating disturbances in the universe, in the warp itself. And, I think that's very true to human nature, how we actually impact the earth around us, how we collectively impact each other with, you know, social conditioning and our experiences and our beliefs kind of echoing throughout time. Obviously, this game doesn't have deep philosophy rooted into it. I just think that's an interesting idea, bringing the metaphysical into the physical. If humans viewed their subconscious and conscious actions as they actually have, you know, action within the physical world, even without them realizing that it does, then I think a lot more people would be careful about their, you know, emotions, their beliefs, and their impact on everything that they do. And Warhammer is such a disturbing tale of how, you know, our psychic energy can get out of whack and create some absolute monstrosities, and it's just so satisfying. And I just think this game is amazing, so I just wanted to gush about it today. That's all pretty much. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you did enjoy it, and please do subscribe. If you are new, check it out, and I'll see you in the next video. Have yourselves a great day. Peace out.